Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to make over a few items and we're going to start with this tray. And this actually said Pyrex on the bottom. I'm not sure what they were used for, but there's some staining on this and it's just pressed wood. So it needed to be painted. So I'm doing one coat of the color Sea Glass, and actually that covered well and I didn't have to do another coat. So I just give the entire thing, including the handles, one coat of the color Sea Glass. And I went ahead and painted the inside bottom of the tray the same color, but I'm going to be doing that in the color Buttercream. I just wanted to get a good even coat, and I knew that I would get some on it around the edges. Now this is a transfer called Vintage Post, and this is a Dixie Belle transfer. So far, this is my favorite of all of their transfers. And so I'm just going to kind of show you what is in this. And obviously, this is kind of a layered look, but you can cut them separate. And that's what I do a lot of times, most of the time with transfers, is I cut them into pieces. And then you get lots of uses out of your transfer. Now, if you were doing this on furniture or something large, then you could do a whole sheet. But I just like to cut them apart. So I'm just kind of showing you all the transfers that's in this one. There's 4 sheets, and it's got some really neat French country black and white transfers. And myself, I prefer black and white transfers. But I'm just going to use one of these on the tray when I'm finished with it. So I'm just kind of looking through it to see which one I want. And then I finally decided on one and then cut that out. The one that I cut out here, I actually changed my mind on and ended up using another one. But I'm giving this tray 2 coats on the inside here of the color Buttercream, because it did take 2 to cover this well and get a good even coat. And then the tray that I saw on Pinterest had some grain sack striping, so I'm going to do some grain sack striping right down the middle of this tray. Now, I know that there are stencils for this, but the way that I like to do them, I just have better luck using tape instead of the stencils. And I just put one piece of tape down the center. In this case, I want my grain striping in the center. And that's going to be the width of my first stripe. And then I take another piece of masking tape, and I just get my masking tape at the Dollar Tree. It works really well. And so my next 2 pieces of tape will go right up next to my first one. And then I'll pull my first one away, and that will be the stencil for my first stripe. So that's how a good way to get a very clean stripe. And then I just take my stencil brush and just stencil the blue on. I'm going to use this same Sea Glass as my stripe. So once you get this first stripe on and you let that, well, you pull it off while it's wet actually. And then once you let that dry well to the touch, you don't want it to be tacky at all. You want it to be very dry to the touch. Then you can do your next stripes. And the way I do those is by overlapping the first stripe enough to leave a space between it and the next. And without seeing me do that, it's hard to understand what I'm talking about. But like I said, once it dries, and I know that it's really good and dry to the touch, then I just take another piece of tape, and instead of going up next to this one, I slightly overlap it. And so what I'm doing here is deciding how much of this tape I want to be a space. And then I overlap the rest of it over the top of the first stripe, if that makes sense. So if I were to go right up beside the first stripe and not cover it, then my space between this stripe and the next stripe would be a whole width of the tape, if that makes sense. And then I just take the next piece of tape and decide here, just kind of eyeballing what width I want my next stripe. And so then I just take that far away from my original tape. And then that will give me the stencil for my next two stripes. I do that on both sides. And now I have a space there that I can stencil my next stripe. And so then I just do the same thing with the same color here and just kind of pounce on that stripe. And then once I remove this tape, then I'll have 3 stripes, but my second 2 stripes will be thinner than my first. And that's just a preference there. You can make these the width that you want them, and you don't even have to stop at 3 stripes. You could go on and do 2 more and make it 5 stripes. But I generally do 3 stripes, and I generally do my first stripe larger than my next ones. But that just makes a good clean grain sack striping. And like I said, they do have a stencil for this, but I just don't get very clean stripes with those stencils. So now this is dry again, and now I'm going to put one of these transfers that I chose from that set called Vintage Post. That's a Dixie Belle transfer. And now I'm just going to, and that slid there, and I'm lucky that it didn't try to stick, because sometimes once you lay that transfer down, it starts sticking. So like I said, I was very lucky that didn't happen here. And now I'm just going to transfer that on, and I didn't do, some people do their top coat before they do the stencil. For me, it just doesn't seem to work out well that way. So I'm doing my transfer before I seal my paint. And like I said, some would say that that's the wrong order to do them in, but for me, the transfers work better that way. So I'm just going to do this transfer, and then I can put my top coat on it. And actually what I'm doing for a top coat is I'm just going to use my my clear wax, and then that will seal this, and then I won't have to do a top coat. Now I could spray this with some sort of clear top coat, or I could brush on my Dixie Belle top coat, but like I said, I just used a wax to seal this in. And I like how this one turned out. And I did add a hang tag that I made for each of these items in this vignette. But I thrifted this box, and I'm thinking it's a magazine rack of some kind. I thrifted it, and it originally came from Ross, and it was white, but someone painted it this color blue, and it didn't cover real good. The paint job wasn't real good, and this is not a color that I want, so I'm also going to be giving this one 2 coats of the color Sea Glass. And I just paint that inside and out and give it 2 good coats until I'm sure that it's covered well. Now, getting down inside this wasn't the easiest. Spray paint actually would have worked much better, but then you're so limited on your colors, so I just kind of took my time and was able to get it covered well inside also. And now here I'm using some white wax on this, and instead of using a clear wax, I used white because I wanted that to settle down into all this detail. So, and as it turns out, I ended up using some white wax on the outside of my tray, but not on the inside, because I still wanted to kind of mute this color down some. So I forgot to mention that I decided on the white wax on the outside or the basket part of the tray. But other than this white wax, all I need to do to this one is add a hang tag. And I may do another video soon on hang tags. I did one at one time on making some hang tags, but I may make some different styles at some point. But I feel like the hang tags are making a big difference in these items, and you just kind of make the hang tag to match your item. And then for the third item, I had thrifted this old purse. I would have loved it if it had been black, but it's brown, and brown is just, to me, not going to go well in a vignette. So I decided to give this one a paint job. And I'm going to use buttercream on this. And it takes a couple of good coats to cover it. But I'm going to paint the entire purse, handle and all, in the color buttercream. And then once I get that covered and let that dry, then I'm going to add some embellishment to this. And I decided, since this is going to go with my little vignette, that I'm just going to go ahead and add some grain sack striping to this one. But instead of making this one in the center, I'm going to offset it some. So I just go through the same process of making the grain stripes, and I just put that second piece right up beside the first one, and then the third one right up on the other side of it, and then pull that away and use that as the stencil for my first stripe. Then again, I'll overlap that first stripe once it's dry, and give myself space with the tape for my next stripe. So I just put one right over the center, and you can see through that tape there to see how much you've overlapped it. So that will be how large of a space you'll have between it and your second stripe. So I just do that on both sides, and then add my next piece of tape on each side, the distance that I want to be the width of my stripe. And I do that on both sides, and that will be my next stripe, just like I did on the last one. And then once my stripes are complete and they're dry, then this one I'm going to be adding a stamp on. I thought about doing a transfer on this one, and just decided that I was going to use one of my stamps from Icy Paris, and I just decided to stamp this with black Stays On ink, and instead of using one of my transfers. And then I used another one of the stamps from that set with just script on it, and kind of added some script to the bottom of the purse, just so that I had something on that side. And then I just finished this off with a clear top coat, and I just used a Dixie Belle matte finish top coat to seal this in. And then I decided that I wanted to stage this open, and because that's brown inside and I wouldn't have very good luck painting that, then I just took this very, very badly stained doily and just used the parts of it that weren't stained. And there was actually some pink staining on this that I did use, but that's going to be down inside, and I'm just going to layer some of this that is not stained over the top of it, because It's just going to be kind of a layered doily look, and the inside is really not going to show. You'll just see some of the inside where it's opened. So I just take some hot glue and glue it to that back side so that all that brown is covered. I don't worry about the front part of the inside because it's not going to be showing when you have it displayed on your dresser or wherever it is that you use it. You won't see the inside of the front of the purse. So like I said, I just kind of did the back, and here where there's stains still, I just took some other little pieces of lace and just hot glued those over the top of the stains. That way, if it is completely open, the stains are covered. Now, I have made floral arrangements out of these purses, but this one, I didn't want that. I just wanted to be able to use it in staging, so I just didn't feel like it was necessary to put floral in this one. And here I'm just cutting off some pieces of this same doily that I can just kind of glue over the top of those stains. And so that was an easy fix for me. And like I said, you're only going to see a hint of that when this is open. And you could display something hanging out of it, maybe another doily or some sort of embellishment. But if it's open and you don't have anything else in it, then it'll look fine because we have that doily in there. And then I took another small piece of that doily that wasn't stained. There wasn't much left that wasn't stained, but the little bit that was left, I just decided to glue that to the front of the purse and just kind of let it hang over the front. And I didn't worry with the part that was stained that I was leaving back inside the purse because, again, that's not going to show. And then I'll make a hang tag for this purse, and then this one will be finished. And again, this is the part of the video where if you don't want to see Christmas ornaments, you can go ahead and shut the video off because that was my last flip. But if you're in the mood for Christmas, then I'm going to be doing a couple of faith-related ornaments, and these are very simple to do. I generally use wood for these. You could also use a stretch canvas from the Dollar Tree because they have small canvases. Or you could use a piece of cardboard. Like I said, you could use a lightweight wood, but I'm trying to avoid that when I can because of the cost lately. So I'm using a book jacket. So with this small book, I'm going to get two ornaments out of it. So here I'm using just a utility knife and cutting mine. For the back side, I end up taking it to my table saw and sawing it that way. So you could use a utility knife, or you could use a table saw for this. Or I guess you could use your X-Acto knife, or some really good scissors would probably work too. So this was a little longer than I wanted it, so I went ahead and cut some off the length also. And now at this point I could paint this, or I'm just going to layer some old book pages and music on this. And at this point you could use scrapbook paper, like I said, book pages or sheet music. Actually, you could use a number of things. You could even take some paper and stamp on it and add that to this, but the idea here is just kind of layer these up until I cover the whole front side of this. And then I found some clip art of the nativity, and I'm also going to be adding that to this. Now you could use magazine pages or book pages for your pictures, or you could order clip art from Amazon, or in this case I found just different things online and printed those off. So you could find a lot of free clip art. I find a lot from the Graphics Fairy, and then you're able to just print that off. They have a lot that they charge you for, but they do offer a lot of free clip art. So I'm just tearing this one out because I just want that look. And that's what I'll use for the theme of my ornament here, because I want this to be faith related, and we all know what Christmas is all about, so this is going to be a true Christmas ornament. So now, after I've inked up around this, and then I'm going to tear some old book page that doesn't have any print on it, because I want that white border to make this show up more. So, and then I'll kind of ink around that also. And now I'm going to start gluing these down, and I'm just going to use some glue stick. I do recommend using a good glue stick here, but I'm just going to glue these down with some glue stick. And there's no need to overthink the placement of your pages. Just kind of get your area covered, and if you leave anything open, just make sure that that's where you're going to be putting your clip art. So I just kind of layer those on there until I get this page covered where it needs to be covered. And then it's ready to add my main image. So I just glue that down, and then I wanted a message on here, and I had this little stamp that says Christmas Blessings, so I just added that there at the top on another piece of book page, and I antiqued around that book page, and then I decided that I also wanted a star. So I had this little star here, and I just kind of put that Christmas Blessings at an angle, but kept my star right side up, if that makes sense, so that when I glue that down, the Christmas Blessings will be at an angle, but that star will be the way it needs to be. So I just kind of glue these and place them that way. And then I decided I wanted some extra embellishments with just kind of scraps of lace, and I just kind of randomly glued those with hot glue. But I didn't glue them flat. I purposely kind of bunched them up to add some texture, and then I can just glue buttons on the top of those. Now you could use other embellishments here. You could even use jewelry if you wanted. But I'm just keeping mine simple and just gluing some vintage buttons on. And then I just ripped a strip of fabric that I'll tie a knot in both ends and use that by gluing it as my hanger. But first I used my antiquing ink and just kind of rubbed on that to antique it, because I didn't want to have to wait on coffee stain to dry. And then because I have the back side of the book, I'm going to do another one. And this one will be also a nativity ornament. So I used some scrapbook paper on this one and just used some tacky glue and glued that down to cover this whole side. And then once I get that glued down, then I cut away my excess, and that will be the base for my ornament. And then I used my distress ink and just kind of inked up around the edges and kind of feathered that in a little bit to make this look a little more aged. And now I'm layering a little bit of a music sheet to this, and I'm just using tacky glue for that. I could have used stick glue here because I'm just gluing to paper, but I'm just kind of gluing this in place. And it doesn't have to cover the whole front. You can cover most of it if you want, but I just think these are kind of all about layering, and I just kind of place things where I feel like they look good to me, and that's all that matters when you're doing these, is just find the balance that you think is there, because the random look of them, I think, is part of their charm. And so I just glue this down, and it's going to be similar to the other one, but this one, I just took a book page that didn't have any writing on it and stamped this nativity on that. And this stamp I purchased years ago at Hobby Lobby, and I haven't checked to see if they still have it, but my guess is that they do, because Hobby Lobby is really good to keep items with the real meaning. And so I would say if they don't have this particular one, that they would definitely have one. And then this little star, I thrifted it all. I actually thrifted it, and I use it a lot. But I just stamped that on a book page, and then I'll add that to the top, because every manger scene needs a star, I feel like. And I decided to also add the Christmas blessings to this one. I wish I had some more stamps that are faith related for Christmas, but I'm kind of limited on that. And I decided when I glued that star down to put some white lace behind it, and it kind of mimics the star shining, I felt like. But it also added some layering there. And now I'm just kind of gluing this Christmas blessings down. And then I'll just kind of add some little scraps of fabric lace, like I did on the last one, to add layers where I feel like I need them. And then I'll add a hanger to this one, and this one will be finished. Someone had asked me to do some angels, or another angel, and so I have something in mind for an angel, and I'm hoping it works out. So that's what I plan on doing for my next Christmas video. But I like how these turned out, and if you do a faith-related tree like I do, you have to learn to make some of these ornaments, because unfortunately they're not very plentiful in the store. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.